Hey everyone, John Henry here, slingshotfutures.com, and welcome to the Market Outlook, where we take a look at our big six markets that we trade and we formulate a plan for tomorrow's trading. That way we can be as prepared as possible so when tomorrow happens, we'll be ready to rock and roll. So first off today, we'll start with the big three in the futures market, gold, crude, and the Dow. Now, gold has been seeing a relatively decent run higher, right? We had a peak back here earlier in the day, matched up with a peak at the high around 9-10 o'clock or so, and transposing that line to the bottom, we found a boatload of support. Now, with that massive amount of support coming in down there, that pretty much stopped this drop dead in its tracks. It was looking like an absolute rip to the upside, and then they gave almost all of it back. They weren't able to give it all back, and that's a big clue, because that tells us that the buyers are still interested, but they're letting it pull back really far before they start getting that upward momentum. Now, one big thing that stands out here is the up and down, first of all. That's pretty obvious. But the fact that we missed that low and we started forming a huge amount of inventory that was retested at the bottom and pushing back up, very aggressive here as well. And now we're forming an ascending wedge. What I would really like to see here is a quick dip lower to become a buyer on a pullback. Now, arguably that already happened with a small little trap underneath 85.8. If we can get another one, and that's a big if right now because we're pinning back to the highs, but underneath 85.6 would be a nice area. At the moment, becoming a new buyer right here, right now, we're a little high for that to happen. So instead, I would much rather see a slight pullback. 85.6 would be really nice. If we can get a deeper pullback, we can start looking for bounces off of that rising area of support. And if they really want to be kind, you may be able to find some buying at 83.1 down to 82. Now, looking at the major levels above us, we have a big bull objective that just popped up here. We're looking at a run towards the upside at 89.2. Now, 89.2, that's telling us that the buyer's major objective is up there. Now, does that mean that we're going to get there all in one shot? Not necessarily, but given that we already know the buyers are interested, they're buying the pullbacks, they bought into the dip low for a trap, and they're running back up towards the highs, there's a really big clue that we may find some pretty decent support here to drive the market further up for that major objective at 89.2. As we start pushing into the highs, that's where we anticipate a lot of buyers starting to take profit, and it could cause a little bit of a pullback. So looking to be a buyer, but if we do go through the highs, I'm not looking for much past the highs. We've had too deep of a pullback for the buyers to be anxious and geared up for another huge run like we had earlier. Probably not going to happen. So 89.2 is the big objective on the docket right now, looking to become a buyer, but preferably on a pullback. Switching gears over to crude oil now, we have a very beautiful bearish trend working pretty much most of the afternoon and late morning session. Now, I say most of because the morning session, if you were trading in the US morning session from like 8 to 10 o'clock or so, price action was abysmal. It was horrendous. The moves were really bad. The consistency was really bad. It was really herky-jerky, tough market to stick around in. Now that we have this beautiful drop working its way lower, we know that sellers are very obviously in control of this market. They gain control back at around 10 o'clock. But the problem is we're really far down. And to be a seller right now, it's going to be very tough. All of the sellers who have been short since that breakdown, holding and holding and holding, maybe even adding more into pullbacks, they're looking to liquidate down here. So the last thing they want to be doing is adding positions at the bottom of a move. It doesn't make much sense. Right now, the major area of support where a lot of sellers are probably taking profit and may become a level of interest is at 50.79. What I would really like to see here is a correction up, maybe in the overnight session, to push back into areas of earlier confluence, right? We had the swing low down there. We had the bounce back up there. That forms an area of inventory where the buyers and sellers are fighting over price. And that would be at around 51.16 to 51.27. I would love to find a sell in that area to attempt to drive the market back down to the lows. If the market wants to catch some legs to the upside, this is definitely a runner type market right now, we may find a deeper move up into 51.81 to 71 or to 64 down to 55. But the major area that I'm looking for, 27 to 16, would love to find some selling opportunities around that area. But as of right now, I'm sitting on hands waiting for a little more information. And then finally, over on the Dow, we have a very back and forth market, just like gold. Had a massive run higher, really nice continuation, and then things got nasty. It just completely fell apart. Now, on this down move, we have major downside objectives just underneath this low down here, which is at 19,773. I'm looking for further continuation to the downside to finish that objective off. And it looks like the sellers mean business right now, so it may finish it off relatively soon, or at least sooner than later. But if we are able to get a small little pullback, I wouldn't mind selling it all. I mean, honestly, anywhere inside here. That top little peaking doji, that may be where you find a bunch of resistance to come in. But outside of that, you know, we're in sell mode, and we need to be looking for selling opportunities. Arguably, selling a little bit of a retrace first, and then getting the move down to finish off the objective to the rising support, as well as the major support objective for the sellers at 19,773. So really back and forth market all over the place on gold, on the Dow, and now when we jump over to the Forex market, we can see that it's pretty much the same. It's a little bit more structured in the sense of picking a direction, but we can see big up, big down, big up, big down, big up, big down. Lots of big, wild movement that we saw today. Now, overall, the euro is bearish, and that bearishness was solidified with that inventory placement from 59.81 to 59.22. Big amount of selling pressure that came in there to drive the market back down to a new low. Now, that new low did form somewhat of a wedge bottom, and coming off of the highs, we have a wedge top. Arguably, you could even tighten it up a little bit further with that solidification of inventory, which would give you a tighter wedge high to work with. And speaking of wedges, we also have another one right here, right? We have a small little wedge working its way in, and what I would really like to see here is a quick pop above around 56, 59 or so to become a seller, to then drive the market back down to the lows once again. Now, given the overall bearishness that we're seeing here, it definitely is a nice thing to see a quick little bull bounce, because that allows the sellers to get in a better price. And one area that makes a lot of sense, right there, right inside here, because that piles up with all of the earlier movement. We saw a bunch of inventory come in through here, trap the lows, a little bit of a head fake, bounce back up. When they came back into that area, another really strong bounce. Now, when they finally break through it, right, now we're interested to see what they want to do if they can come back and retest it. So 56.59 is a low edge, but you could easily be looking to go, you know, anywhere up to, I would say, around 57.38 or so. This whole area could become an area of interest for sellers. So looking to sell, but I would like to see a little head fake above the highs, trap in some buyers, and then push the market down towards the lows. Over on the pound dollar, really nice looking rising support coming off the little midpoint. They trapped the low and haven't stopped going higher. They took a nice deep little move lower, and this is arguably transitioning into a range, right? Big move up, big move up, big move down, rinse and repeat from all the other markets. But what's happening here? There's a lot more back and forth. Big up, big down, big up, big down, grindy a little bit. And then even in the smaller moves, you can see really big pops in both directions. So given that circumstance, we're looking at this becoming more likely than not a range. The low of which is going to be around 21,507. It might be a little bit lower than that if you wanted to use the absolute low, 21,481. But generally speaking, we're finding a lot of buy support coming in at around, I would even say that 21,51.3 area. Now, what I'm looking for here is to be a buyer, but I don't want to buy this far up. What I would rather see is a quick little snap lower, maybe a trap low, maybe a little bounce for a twin reversal outside of that rising area of support. I would love to see 21,51.3 for a buy move back up towards those highs to finish it off. Since we've had so much weakness up here, there's a good chance that we're probably not going to get a new high. And if we do, it's likely not going to be a very big high. But it is something to keep in mind that we may want to look for slightly larger targets above, but not by much, right? The overall major objective is at the highs, maybe even a little under the highs. Now, if you just saw, I drew a trend line from the top and to the top, transposing it down to the bottom. That shows us that we have support, grinding around that area. What we really need to see is a quick break away from this and then get it going, right? That's why we want to see a nice little pullback. So looking to be a buyer, but on a quick snap pullback would be much more beneficial for the pound dollar. And then finally in our Forex pairs, the dollar yen, very range bound. It looked like it was going to start the day off with just a phenomenal looking bull trend, continuing up and up and up and up, but then 9 o'clock happened happened, 10 o'clock happened, and it just gave everything back. It's another scenario where it didn't break through those lows. Again, that's important information because we know that even though the buyers took a boatload of pressure, they still are in the trade. A lot of stops are probably underneath that low, and as long as it doesn't hit, the buyers still have an argument. Now, that argument is obviously a lot weaker given this drive lower, and we're probably just going to transition into a range, but this area where we are right now is a definite buying location. Very strong bullishness coming off of this most recent area, looking for continuation to the upside to drive the market back up into where we found a bunch of sell inventory from before. This is where the sellers swarmed in, and when they came back to retest it, they defended it. So, knowing that information, our major objective right now for buying would be around 987 to 069. If they can break through it, then you're looking for them to grind further up to where we found inventory up here, and that would be between 16,269 up to 16,347. So, looking to be a buyer on this pullback. I would like to see a move, if you want to be conservative, a move above the moving average, right? Show us that the buyers actually want to come in here, get a pullback, and then continuation to the upside to get it done. But arguably, a lot of aggressive buyers will be scaling in here on this trap low, twin reversal back up again. So really interesting location and arguably a potential scale-in buy on the dollar yen if the buyers can get things going. So that's going to do it for the daily market outlook. As always, make a plan, trade that plan, follow your rules, and you will be A-okay. Until tomorrow, have a good one. Make sure to get some coffee. Tomorrow might be an interesting one given what happened all today. But outside of that, we will see everyone tomorrow.